Have you ever found yourself trapped in mental patterns that seem to replay endlessly, as if your mind were stuck in a loop of weakness, anxiety, and self-defeating thoughts? What if I told you that the ancient Stoics discovered 5 specific mental rewiring techniques so powerful that they can completely transform your neural pathways, turning your mind from a source of limitation into an unshakable foundation of strength and clarity? Tonight, we explore 5 transformative Stoic lessons that don't just change how you think, they literally rewire your brain's default patterns, creating new neural highways that lead to resilience, peace, and unwavering inner strength. Before we embark on this neurological transformation that has the power to completely reconstruct how your mind operates, I need you to engage with this content in a way that signals your commitment to genuine mental evolution. Like this video, if you're ready to stop being a prisoner of your own thought patterns and start becoming the architect of your mental landscape. Subscribe to Inner Dominion, because we're building a community of minds that refuse to remain trapped in outdated programming and choose instead to consciously rewire themselves for strength and resilience. Share this with someone who needs to remember that their brain is far more malleable than they've been taught, and that real transformation is always possible with the right principles and consistent practice. These 5 lessons have been tested by Roman emperors who rewired their minds to handle the collapse of civilizations, by slaves who transformed mental bondage into psychological freedom, by philosophers who faced persecution and death with unshakable composure. And they will work for you if you apply them with the dedication they deserve. The first lesson begins the rewiring process by establishing a new default pattern that separates mental slaves from free human beings. Train your mind to automatically distinguish between what you control and what you don't control. Epictetus, who understood both literal chains and the invisible mental shackles that bind most minds, taught that the fundamental skill of psychological freedom is learning to automatically sort every experience into 2 categories: what is up to me and what is not up to me. This isn't just a philosophical concept, it's a neural rewiring technique that creates new mental pathways. Every time your mind encounters a stressful situation, instead of immediately spiraling into anxiety or frustration, you train it to automatically ask, which aspects of this situation fall within my sphere of influence, and which do not? Your spouse's mood when they wake up is not up to you, but how you choose to respond to whatever mood they're in absolutely is. The economy's impact on your industry is not up to you, but your preparation for economic changes, your skill development, and your strategic responses completely are. Your colleague's decision to undermine your project is not up to you, but your professional response, your emotional regulation, and the boundaries you establish moving forward entirely are. This practice literally rewires your brain's stress response system. Instead of your amygdala hijacking your prefrontal cortex with panic and reactivity, you create new neural pathways that automatically engage your higher reasoning faculties when challenges arise. Over time, this becomes your mind's default response pattern: automatic sorting of experiences into controllable and uncontrollable categories, followed by immediate focus on what you can actually influence. The second lesson introduces a counterintuitive rewiring technique that builds psychological resilience at the neural level. Practice negative visualization to strengthen your brain's adaptation mechanisms. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of difficulties, and modern neuroscience has proven that this practice literally changes how your brain processes stress and uncertainty. When you regularly visualize challenging scenarios in a calm, controlled mental environment, you're essentially giving your brain practice sessions for handling real difficulties. Spend time each morning visualizing your most important relationship experiencing serious conflict, your primary income source being threatened, or receiving disappointing news about a project you've invested months developing. But here's the crucial part. You don't just imagine these scenarios happening. You mentally rehearse responding to them with wisdom, composure, and strength. You visualize yourself maintaining your values under pressure, making strategic decisions despite emotional turbulence, and finding opportunities for growth within apparent setbacks. This practice rewires your brain's threat detection and response systems. Instead of your mind catastrophizing about unknown futures, it becomes familiar with challenging territory and develops confidence in its ability to navigate difficulty. When real problems arise, They encounter a brain that has already explored that psychological landscape and developed response strategies. Your neural networks literally become more resilient because they've practiced resilience in a controlled environment. The third lesson addresses one of the most destructive mental patterns and provides a complete rewiring of how your brain processes challenging emotions. Transform your relationship with discomfort from avoidance to embrace. Modern culture has conditioned our brains to interpret any form of discomfort as a problem to be solved immediately, creating neural pathways that constantly seek the path of least resistance. But the Stoics understood that strength comes from consciously choosing controlled discomfort as training for uncontrolled difficulty. Start rewiring this pattern by deliberately exposing yourself to manageable forms of discomfort. Cold showers that challenge your comfort zone. Periods of fasting that build appreciation for abundance. Difficult conversations that strengthen your ability to navigate conflict. Challenging physical workouts that prove your capacity to push through resistance. But the key is how you frame these experiences mentally. Instead of enduring them reluctantly, you consciously choose them as opportunities to build neural pathways of resilience. Each time you voluntarily embrace discomfort and maintain your composure, you're literally strengthening the neural connections that support emotional regulation, impulse control, and stress tolerance. Your brain begins to automatically interpret challenges as opportunities for growth rather than threats to be avoided. This rewiring creates a fundamental shift in how you experience reality. Difficulties become training rather than suffering. Obstacles become curriculum rather than roadblocks. The fourth lesson rewires one of the most persistent sources of mental weakness and replaces it with an unshakable foundation of inner strength. Replace external validation seeking with internal value-based living. Most people's brains are wired to constantly scan for external approval, creating neural pathways that make their self-worth dependent on others' opinions, achievements, and circumstances beyond their control. This creates a perpetually unstable psychological foundation that crumbles whenever external conditions shift. The Stoic rewiring process involves consciously redirecting these mental patterns toward internal reference points. Your values, your effort, your character development, your alignment with your deepest principles. Every time you catch your mind seeking external validation, whether through social media likes, professional recognition, or others' approval of your choices, you pause and redirect your attention to internal questions. Did I act according to my values? Did I give my best effort? Am I becoming the person I want to be? This practice creates new neural pathways that automatically reference internal rather than external metrics for self-worth. Over time, your brain develops an automatic pattern of evaluating experiences based on character development rather than external outcomes, effort rather than results, value alignment rather than others' opinions. This rewiring creates genuine psychological independence and unshakable inner stability. The fifth and final lesson synthesizes all the others into a complete mental rewiring that makes you virtually immune to psychological chaos. Program your mind to respond from values rather than emotions. Your emotions are temporary neurochemical events in your brain, sometimes helpful, sometimes misleading, always changing. But your values are like stable programs that can guide your responses regardless of what emotional weather systems are currently active in your consciousness. The rewiring process involves creating conscious interrupts between emotional activation and behavioral response. When someone criticizes your work unfairly, when unexpected challenges disrupt your plans, when people behave in ways that trigger frustration, instead of immediately reacting from emotion, you create a pause where you access your value-based programming. What does integrity require in this situation? What would wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline look like in my response? This practice literally rewires your brain's decision-making processes. Instead of your limbic system automatically controlling your responses, you strengthen the neural pathways that engage your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for higher reasoning, value-based decision-making, and long-term thinking. Over time, this becomes your mind's default pattern, automatic engagement of value-based reasoning whenever challenging situations arise. These 5 lessons work together to create a complete mental rewiring that transforms your brain from a source of limitation into a fortress of strength. You automatically distinguish between what you control and don't control. You use negative visualization to build resilience. You embrace voluntary discomfort as strength training. You replace external validation seeking with internal value-based living. And you respond from values rather than emotions. The neuroplasticity research of the last few decades has proven what the ancient Stoics intuitively understood. Your brain is far more malleable than previously believed, capable of forming new neural pathways and breaking old patterns at any age. Every time you practice these lessons, you're literally sculpting your brain's architecture, creating mental highways that lead to strength rather than weakness, resilience rather than fragility, peace rather than chaos. The ancient Stoics discovered something that our instant gratification culture has largely forgotten. True strength comes not from favorable circumstances, but from favorable neural programming, not from avoiding challenges, but from rewiring your brain to thrive within them. They understood that the mind, properly trained through daily practice of these principles, becomes like a sophisticated computer that automatically runs programs designed for flourishing rather than suffering. As you prepare for sleep tonight and whatever tomorrow may bring to your consciousness, remember that you now possess 5 of the most powerful mental rewiring techniques ever discovered by human beings. Your brain is already beginning to form new neural pathways based simply on your exposure to these concepts. The only question remaining is whether you will commit to the daily practice required to make these new pathways stronger than the old ones, to make strength your mind's default programming rather than its exceptional state. What aspect of your mental landscape will you begin rewiring tomorrow? And how will you start building these new neural foundations today?